The day of ascension is at hand. Rise up, star children. It's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Combat Patrol Carnage. Today we're going to be starting issue 61 and it brings us the Genestealer Cult Magus, or Magus. So this is the first character, well only character, first model for our Genestealer Cult Combat Patrol, and she's a rather nice little model. I only really painted the original Magus, which we are getting in Premium Kit 4. So yeah, this will be a nice difference to what I've done before, and really the paint guide has done a great job. So into issue 61 we got a build guide, of course. She's a lovely model, very few components, only 9 in total by the looks of it. Maybe 10 because you got the dagger or the skull. Paint guide's lovely, really in depth, so painting pretty much, well, the colour scheme the magazine is going to go for, so a lot of different colours, reds, greys, orc flesh and screaming pink are used on small details. Then we've got the shades. The skin is going to be very red, which I don't quite like, but I think a relayer with Wraithbone first and then highlight a powdered witch flesh might help, but it does tell us to go straight to powdered witch flesh as a layer for the skin. So maybe we'll highlight later on with white. But yeah, she'll have a lovely paint job and she's near enough complete as is. We've got a couple of read articles, a double page spread about the cult. We have a table for writing down about our cult. So we've got a title for our leader as well as we get to name our cult, which is quite fun. And then we got, of course, we've got a name table to name our Magus before we try her out in Sowing the Seeds, our latest scenario where the Aeldari are trying to purge a tyrannical infestation site. So this is the sprue that she comes on, and yeah, only 11 components. So we've got the 2 halves of the torso there, we've got her arms, which is technically 3 parts of the torso, legs, her skirt, her staff, her head, and pistol, and a choice of either a dagger or skull for her left hand. And for base, she comes on a 32mm. So I'll do things a little different in this video. We're going to go for the build and read articles in this one. Next time we'll paint her, going through the entire paint guide. And then finally we'll do our play article. So before we hit the table, build and read our new articles, don't forget to of course do all the usual. Like this video if you're enjoying the content, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and of course drop me a comment down below as I love hearing back from you guys. It goes a massive way to helping out this channel, and it's always good to hear what you're up to in your hobby. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. It's getting near that time of year again, so if you're looking for something for your hobby friends, check them out. They might just have some awesome bits that you're wanting to get them, or even some paints for yourself if you're needing a few. So check out Warbay as usual. There's a link in the video description, and of course you might find your next hobby project at a bit of a discount. So let's head to the table then. We'll build our Magus and we'll go through our little read article before we name her and the cult she's leading. Here we are then with issue 61 for our first time. So we'll take a close look at our Magus on sprue, if I stop nudging the camera. And here we have the awesome detailed side. So we got her main torso of arms, little gem at the front there, which I think is a cracked Aeldari spirit stone. We've got the mining armor that is common across the Genestealer Cults. Got her legs here, we got the front of her armor there, got her skirt, 2 halves there, the awesome staff with the symbol of the patriarch on top. We've of course got her head and a choice of a little skull or dagger for her left arm, And finally, she's got a little pistol with a bit of tassel sort of hanging down from her waist. So yeah, she's going to go together quite simply, so we can get through this easy, and then we'll also get into our read articles. So I'll put that off to the side for a moment. We'll adjust the camera and we can dive right into issue 61. Right then, here we go. So what's in issue 61? Well, we got our build and paint guides for the Magus straight off. We've got a read article looking at the Genestealer Cults as well as the evolution of a cult. We have a collect article looking at Genestealer Cult characters as well as the name for the cult. And we have our collect article for our Magus. And then finally we have Sowing the Seeds, scenario 38. First off then, we've got our build guide. So she goes together, as I said, fairly simply. Parts 1 and 2 is her torso and back with the hips. So you glue those together. Then part 3, sandwiches in front, giving the full front armour of the torso there. And we put part 4, her head, in place. Glue part 6 to the right side of part 5 and part 7 to the left side. And then that goes to the base, and we can glue her top down to her legs. Then we got her pistol, which goes on her hip on the left side. Her staff goes on the right hand. Then we got the choice of either the dagger or the skull to go onto her left hand. You can pick whichever one you want. I believe the paint guide will go with the dagger, as that's how the magazine shows a model built. And then we have the finished model there. When the day of ascension comes and the star-children walk the surface of this world, the faithful shall be rewarded. Yeah, my being turned into biomass. You didn't mention that bit, did you? Right, paint guide next, but first off, let's get her built, shall we? So I'll bring my tools in and we can start building our Magus. Right then, parts 1, 2, 3 and 4 are needed first. So we got part 3 just there. Part 4. Part 2. And finally, part 1. So we'll get those cleaned up and we can assemble them together. All right, there we go. Our first components are cleaned up. So you want to put glue along the shoulder armor here and into that little back nook. Then we got 2 knobs on the inside there and 2 little divots there. The torso fits in like so. A little bit of glue just on there, and finally on the shoulders and along this V here. So her head, we got a little notch just under her chin, and that fits onto her collar. And then this will attach and flesh out her armor. So I'll set that to one side to dry while we work on her legs. So parts 6, 5 and 7. So I'll get those cleaned up and assembled. Right then, we've got our components all cleaned up. So part 7. So part 6, this bit here. That should go in like so. There's a little square notch just there, so I'll place a little bit of glue. And then we got a little post there that helps guide the legs in place. So I'll glue there and down side of the cape, a little bit of glue on a hip, and then we got another post and port connection of part 7. And there we go. So put a little bit of glue on each foot. And she glues down to her base, like so. We give that a couple of minutes to dry, a couple of seconds to dry. And now we can assemble the final parts of the torso. So a little glue inside her hips, and that's just lines up like so. While we wait for the dry, we'll cut out the last few components. So we'll need her pistol pouch, the staff of the patriarch. So I'm going to cut that first, then that, then that, and finally that. And then we'll go with the dagger because it's really awesome. So I'll cut out part 11 there. And we got this skull, which is in her hand, which is kind of cool. It's a nice optional component. So we'll get those last few pieces cleaned up before we glue them to our model. So we got our final components to attach. So bring in our glue again. So we got a little notch there. That's where our pistol will rest. And then a little dab of glue on the wrist. Then we got her dagger. Oops. It's just going to be very fiddly. It should be just like that. And then a little bit of glue on this wrist. And then we got a hand for the staff, which locks in. Like so, and there we go. Our Magus is built. So put it off the side to fully dry while we go through our lore articles. So here we are, skipped to the read articles. I've got a dice and pen off to the side, ready for when we come to the naming tables. But first we have Genestealer Cults, the Insidious Curse. Lurking within the Imperium is a dire threat. Dangerous cults enthrall to tyrannid organisms. These fanatical sects worship the Xenos creatures as divine saviors. After many generations of plotting in secrecy, a Genestealer cult rises up against Imperial rule. Secretive, stealthy, and unimaginably dangerous, the Genestealer cults are a cancer in the heart of the Imperium. Such cults can spell utter annihilation for the worlds in which they prosper, for the psychic bond they share is a brightly burning beacon in the warp that draws the Tyranid hive fleets. The Genestealers that the cults worship are, in fact, Tyranid vanguard organisms, whose role is to seek out new feeding grounds. However, the cult is completely unaware of the Genestealers' true purpose. To them, the multi-limbed horrors are heralds of the coming gods, who offer deliverance from tyranny of the Imperium. As a hive fleet draws near, a psychic imperative triggers violent insurrection. The cult throws off the veil of secrecy and rises up against the planetary rulers. Sabotage and assassination sow confusion and discord amongst the planet's defenders. Misshapen creatures burst from hidden places, tearing at the foe with inhuman strength. Captured weapons, battle tanks, and even repurposed industrial equipment are used with deadly effect. As the devoted of the cult pave the way for their interstellar gods. Only when the Tyranids descend do the cultists realize their folly, as they are devoured along with the rest of their doomed world. Space Hulks. Space Hulks are chaotic amalgamations of wrecked ships, thrown together on the tides of the warp and floating endlessly between real space and the Imperium. Lacking conventional technology, Genestealers often stow aboard these hulks to travel throughout the galaxy. The cults. When a Genestealer finds a populated world, it will infect a local populace with its own DNA. Those infected will become psychically bound to the Genestealer, falling under its control. Their offspring will be hybrids combining human and Xenos traits. The Star Children. Genestealer cults revere their alien progenitors. While they little understand the truth of the Tyranids, they view them in allegorical terms as saviors from beyond the stars or divine messengers. Viewed in this light, Tyranids become the subject of the cult's religious belief. So there we go. That's sort of how a cult begins and the basics of a cult. But how does a cult evolve? Well, let's find out. As the uprising begins, Genestealer cultists overthrow an industrial complex on an imperial world. Evolution of a cult. A Genestealer is capable of implanting a host species with its own genetic code. This overrides the host's DNA, and any offsprings they have will be Xenos hybrids, displaying both human and Genestealer attributes. Down the generation, the hybrids will begin to look more and more human as the hybrids interbreed, and many are able to pass unnoticed amongst uninfected humans. This allows them to infiltrate almost every layer of Imperial society. 2 arms good, 4 arms better. The Patriarch. At the center of every cult is a Patriarch, the original Genestealer whose DNA flows through its followers, binding them together. Such creatures grow to huge proportions, and their elongated talons are capable of tearing even mighty space marines in two. As the locus for the cult's shared psychic link known as the Broodmind, the Patriarch develops potent psychic abilities, and its will holds sway over the cult members. Because of its alien form, the Patriarch remains hidden, directing its network of subjects from its lair. It is only on the day of ascension, when the cult rises up in open warfare, that the Patriarch reveals itself. So now we take a look at the different generations of hybrids. First and second generation hybrids. The hybrids of the first and second generation are true monsters. They often have 3 or even 4 arms, and they possess the stooped posture, clawed hands, and chitinous bodies of their pure strain ancestors. Their strength is prodigious, and they are capable of wielding heavy weaponry with ease. Third and fourth generation hybrids. They still possess some Xenos attributes. The hybrids of the third generation are much more human in appearance, owing to the dilution of Tyranid DNA. By the fourth generation, hybrids are almost indistinguishable from regular humans, save for the hairless scalp and cranial ridges along their brow. Pure strain Genestealers. When fourth generation hybrids reproduce, their Tyranid DNA reasserts itself, and their offspring are pure strain Genestealers. Although totally alien, They are loved unconditionally by their parents and viewed by the cult as divine beings, and living embodiments of the Star Children's will. These Genestealers can use their ovipositors to infect new prey, spreading the Genestealer curse even further and siring new generation of hybrids, all bound to a single brood mind. When the day of ascension comes, they are formidable assets to the cult, for they are swift and agile predators whose sharp talons can tear through armor. Things don't always go to plan. There are some aberrations. Genetic aberrations. The merging of human and Tyrannid DNA is not always predictable. For reasons that are not known, sometimes malformed and twisted hybrids are spawned. Some xenobiologists have theorized that they are the result of factors such as radiation, atmospheric pollutants, or warp storms corrupting the hybridization process. Whatever the reason for their birth, these hulking creatures may be born at any stage in the brood cycle. They possess tremendous strength but little intellect, and their obvious deformities and Xenos heritage mean they must be concealed from Imperial authorities. In battle, they make excellent shock troops. So there we go, that's how a cult, once instituted, evolves over time before they take down the Imperial overlords. So moving on, we've got a couple of collect articles, the first of which is all about creating your own cult. I have been chosen by the Blessed Ones to lead humanity to a new and glorious dawn. Genestealer Cults characters. Genestealer Cults are led by charismatic individuals who draw others to their cause. They inveigle their way into Imperial society, where they use honeyed words and statecraft to advance the cult's agenda. Later, when the cult throws off the veil of secrecy and launches its insurrection, they lead their brethren in open war. Cult leaders. The leaders of the cult carry out the Patriarch's wishes, moving amongst humans and interacting with Imperial society in a way that the alien overlord simply cannot. Through their link to the brood mind, they command unswerving loyalty from their followers. So we've got a trio of titles to give to our Genestealer Magus, so we'll come back to this in a sec. First off, cult names. There are numerous Genestealer cults scattered throughout the Imperium, and they can be found on every type of world, from feudal planets to industrial hive worlds. Below are some common elements that you can use to name your own cult. Take one part from each column to create your name. So I rolled off table and I got the Sanctified Temple of the Star Children. So if what we rolled doesn't tickle my fancy, I think I'll go with that. So let's see what we get. Well, a 2, so the Sanctified. Followed by a 1, Church of. Okay, that's not too bad. And let's get something cool. 5, the Unending Cycle. That does sound kind of cool. So I think we will go for that. So I'll just write that down on a piece of paper a second. So yeah, there we have it. The Sanctified Church of the Unending Cycle is going to be our Genestealer cult for the collection. We do have a background, so let's see what we get. It's a 6. The cult is deliberately targeting members of the planet's aristocracy to infect with the Genestealer curse. Within a few generations, they hope to fully control the world's ruling families. That sounds pretty cool. They could be with the church, they could be a missionary or a priest who serves the ruling classes. So yeah, really awesome. Right, on to our final article to look at, and this is all about our magus. A cult's magus is outwardly human in appearance, allowing them to move within all echelons of Imperial society. They are incredibly charismatic and persuasive individuals. However, behind the facade lies a deadly and powerful psyker, who uses their supernatural abilities to manipulate and control others. So, we got a D6 table for names, none of which I really like. I might wait for our naming chart in a couple of issues' time. But let's see what we do get. We got a 4, so Zaveth. Okay, that isn't as bad as I thought, so we will go with that. So she is Zarveth. And her title. So we got 2, the Worm's Tooth. That's not too bad. I did have Star-Touched Prophet, I think, before. Whilst the 1 Righteous and True sounds really cool. Actually, I think for the church theme, the 1 Righteous and True sounds a little better. So I think I'll go with what I rolled there. And we have built her, so we can tick that off. Finally then, let's take a look at her battle record, which will be usable in our scenario 38. So, datasheet. This is the first datasheet for your Genestealer Cult Combat Patrol. File it away, so it's ready to use in future games and scenarios. So, Magus, movement of 6, toughness of 3, strength a 5+ save, 4 wounds, leadership of 6, and objective control 1. She has an auto pistol, which is a 12-inch range, single shot, 3+ to hit, strength 3, no AP, and only a single point of damage. Her Magus staff, which is a psychic weapon, melee range, 3 attacks, 3+ to hit, strength 5, -1, and D3 damage. She can lead either the Acolyte hybrids or the Neophyte hybrids. She has the Deep Strike and Leader ability. She is a spiritual leader, so while this model is in a unit, that unit has a Feel No Pain 5+ against psychic attacks. So against one of the other psychic enemies, she'll be able to give them a little bit more durability. Kind of annoying, she doesn't actually have any psychic powers, no psychic attacks of any sort other than her staff. It would have been nice to have a smite of some sort, perhaps. But she's an infantry character, psyker, belongs to the Great Devourer, and is a Magus, and has the faction keyword Genestealer Cult. So we've got a reminder of Deep Strike here. So deployment abilities like Deep Strike require all of the models in the unit to possess the corresponding keyword in order to be used, which can spoil your plans if a leader has the keyword but their attached unit does not, or vice versa. Fortunately, the Magus and 2 units that they can be attached to, Acolyte hybrids and Neophyte hybrids, all have Deep Strike, which is more to do with the cult ambush rather than actual deep striking. But there we go. We have done our reading and we've built our Magus. And let's just see. She's dried nicely, I think. Looking really cool. Can't wait to get her painted up, which I hope to get some spraying done, as it seems to be nice and warm out at the moment. The sun's about anyway, so I'll make use of the dry weather while we've got it. But there we have it. Right, that's it for the first part of issue 61. I'll see you next time for the paint guide. But all that's left for me to do is to say thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time for the Uprising. Goodbye.